about the Ghost of the Shadowhunter market. Finally, I'm able to get it out of what the title is. I kept wanting to call it Tales of the Shadowhunter Market. Anyways, these titles are just going to be the death of me. Anyways, this is a short story collection that I seriously cannot believe we have come this far. Now that I've finally finished this book, there's only 2 more books left in the series to cover until, of course, she publishes some more books. There's at least 1 more in the Last Hours series, but I think that's going to be at least a year. And then there's another book for the spin-off series with Alec and Magnus. I don't know when that's supposed to come out at all. I personally feel like she's going to publish another trilogy that goes after the Dark Artifices that follows Kit, maybe. We'll see. Anyways, for today's video though, we are going to talk about the stories in this book. I have created a playlist with all of the previous videos in the series, so if you want to check that out, the link is in the description box below. I've also left the links to each book if you just want to skip ahead to a specific book. Also, I just want to remind you that there will be spoilers in this video, so if you have not read this book and you do not wish to be spoiled, I would strongly recommend coming back after you have read it, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it. So let's go ahead and get into it.
I'm about halfway through Ghost of the Shadowmarket. I really like it. I love this book. First off, right off the bat, that makes me really like this book is, unlike Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy, this is much different. This is much more resembling, I would say, the Bane Chronicles, and each story does not do like a total recap of like the whole story, because that was one thing I didn't like about Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy, is that every story was like, oh yeah, don't forget, this is what Parabatai is, and thank goodness this book does not do that. So it just jumps right into the story. The stories are written beautifully. They're so cozy, just reading them. I really like them. Also, much like the other books, the other short story collections I have, this is a heavy book to like hold up the whole time. I can't remember. I think that this is also different than Bane Chronicles. They are in like chronological order. So it starts out, I think, 1901. And then at least in story 5, we move all the way to 2006. So I don't know about the rest of the other 5 stories that are in there so far. Let's go ahead and get into the first story. The first story is called... It takes place in London, 1901, and we follow Matthew Fairchild. With all of the stories through this book so far, our primary character is Brother Zachariah, and each story he is hunting for the lost Herondale. He's following different leads, and then each story kind of adds a little bit more information to his ultimate goal. But meanwhile, we get to learn about some other people in history. Oh, I just love it. Okay, so in the first one we are in London, 1901, and we follow Matthew Fairchild. Now, this whole series has so many different characters and such lineage, and it is kind of hard to keep track. So Matthew Fairchild is the child of Henry and Charlotte, Henry Bronswell and Charlotte Fairchild. So, in my opinion, I feel like he's portrayed as really silly and honestly kind of dumb. It also could be the narrator's intonation, because while I do have the physical copy, I did go ahead and start listening to it on audiobook. So we were first introduced to Matthew Fairchild as he's introduced being seen in a Shadowmarket dancing with a fairy boy. He calls to Jem as Uncle Jem and like runs up to him and gives him a big hug. We also learn that he wants to ask James Herondale to be his Parabatai. It's honestly kind of overwhelming. As I said, there's a lot of characters and there's a lot of new characters introduced. There is Lucy, Anna, Christopher Lightwood, and more. I do believe that Chain of Iron, which is the next book I'll be getting into, will be talking about this generation. So that's kind of interesting. We will see more of them. I really like the explanations that we get of what the Shadowmarket, Shadowhunter. I really like the explanations that Brother I cannot talk. As Brother Zechariah is walking through the Shadowmarket, I really like the explanations of what the Shadowmarket looks like, what some of the booths are like. This is exactly what I was hoping for in this book. Like, the Shadowmarkets themselves are so mysterious, and they're taboo, and there's such all the downworlders in there, and there's magic and weird curiosities, and so we do get to see a little bit of Brother Zechariah's observations of what's going on. Also, we run into Katarina Loss. At the Shadowmarket, Brother Zechariah is on some mission for a friend. So first he runs into Matthew, but then he sees Katarina, so he leaves Matthew alone and goes to talk to Katarina. So Matthew goes over to a booth and purchases something. This is where I kind of feel like he's dumb, because if he grew up as a Shadowhunter, like, he knows, right? I don't know exactly what it was. They do say what it was that he purchased, some liquid potion or something like that. He feels like his mother is hiding something from him, and so he purchased this thing so that he could basically magic the truth out of her. We're going to come back around to that storyline. Like I said, we're introduced to Lucy and Cordelia. So Lucy wants to be parabatai with Cordelia, and I know these characters are in the Dark Artifices. Not the Dark Artifices. I know that these characters will be in the next series, Chain of Gold. There seems to be some sort of foreshadowing here regarding fairy blood, and they talk about something. It's quite complex, and I feel like it's a lot for my small-minded brain right now. It seems like it's again, another complex concept here. There does seem to be some sort of foreshadowing with possibly fairy blood, and something about real parents. Somebody's talking about real parents or real children or real Shadowhunters. I don't know what's going on. But there's something there. There is something there. And I think that we'll see it more in Chain of Gold. Chain of Gold. So when we see Charlotte for the first time, I personally was like, yes, I missed her. Like, finally a character that I feel like I know already. So Charlotte and Henry's son is Matthew. Matthew suspects that they're hiding something from him. So he gives his mom this potion while they're sitting having tea talking, and she's about to tell him something, but she like collapses, and then like they say that like her tear has like a blue or something. It looks weird. Her tears look weird. So she collapses, and then it reveals that she was expecting another child, which the child died because of what had happened. That was so fucked up. I think at the time, the way the story was written, though, it was so good, because at the time, we didn't know that he purchased anything and that he drugged his own mother. It was only after that she collapsed, and then Jem went to confront Matthew about it and told him, I'm not going to say anything, but you should. That's when you're like, it was him. He drugged his own mother and killed his unborn sibling. Okay, story number 2. So the next story is called Every Exquisite Thing. I loved this story. Anna is the main focus in this story. So she likes to dress like a man. She hates women's clothing of that time. She hates the way it makes her look, but she likes other women and likes that other women dress in nice clothes. She just doesn't like the way they look on her. So obviously we have another transgender character here. Anna is the daughter of Cecily Lightwood, and Cecily is Will Herondale's sister. She married Gabriel, I think, or all the three Lightwood brothers of that time had really similar names, and I cannot remember. But she either married Gabriel or Gideon. Or Gideon married the maid, right? I cannot remember, but she married a Lightwood. Anna meets this girl named Ariadne. I don't know how to say her name. Ariadne. Anna was shocked when Ariadne returned her romantic feelings. So they kind of start this thing, and Anna is just beside herself. She hasn't been happier. Jem, on the other hand, is looking into Tessa's demon father. So this demon pops up, and he becomes interested in Tessa and Will. And Jem does not want this. But they worry for Tessa's children because they feel like they really need to know what they're up against. And this demon sees Anna and like wants to collect her. So they find out that Tessa's father is a greater demon, and this is like, he's like the prince of hell. One of the princes of hell. I guess that's a big deal. I don't really quite understand the gravity of the situation just yet, but obviously it's a big deal. I guess because since Tessa has, the shape-shifting ability, because her mom was a fairy? No, she's basically a warlock? I forgot. They didn't never really classify her. She's not exactly a warlock, but she had a demon for a father and a human? I can't remember. Anyways, her son James can turn himself into smoke. So that's pretty cool. So back to Anna. My heart literally broke for Anna, because Ariadne says that she would not have a future with Anna. And she was really kind of cold about it, I felt like. That she's definitely going to marry a man. And I felt so bad. My heart literally broke at that moment. So she's completely, she goes to her room and she just breaks down. All of her hopes and dreams just shattered, right? And Cecily comes in to talk to her, and Anna realizes that Cecily is known all along, and she accepts her for how she is. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so sweet. And then I love the ending because there's also a picture that goes with it. I wasn't sure who it was. I thought it was, I don't know, I didn't know what the picture was, but I was very curious about it in the beginning. But Cecily gives her a man's suit, and she puts it on. She chops off her hair, and then she's being herself. I love it. I love it so much. I have to find the picture because it is epic. I love it. She not just looks so fantastic. I love it. Also, we learned about Anna. She had the necklace that warns of demons, right? And it got passed down. Wait. It went from Camille, the vampire, to the Lightwoods. Eventually, I forgot how it made its way, but it made its way down to Isabel Lightwood. But it was originally Anna's, wasn't it? I really hope that Anna is in the next book. I kind of feel like she has to be, right? Because this is their generation. Right? Right? I'm so excited. Alright, so moving on to story number 3. Learn about loss. This one was really short story, and we follow a girl. Oh, we learn about an Iron Sister named Amelia. So this Amelia, I guess, made a deal with Brother Zachariah and Will Herondale. So Will at this time is getting quite old, and he's not going to live much longer. So this demon offers Amelia something. Amelia's like, no, I don't need anything. You cannot offer me anything that I would want. So she uses her gift or whatever from this demon, and she says, I want you to give Brother Zachariah and Will Herondale a moment. The demon gives them a moment back in time before they have actually become parabatai, and they get to spend some time together in that place. And it just sweeps them both away, and I just thought it was the best. It was the best. It was so sweet. And there's a lot more to the story, but I felt like this was the token moment for this story. It was all that stuck out. So, on to the 4th story called A Deeper Love. This is about Katerina Loss and Tessa. This is a time right after Will dies, and Tessa leaves. Because without Will, there's no place for her in the Institute and with the Shadowhunters. She's also just consumed with grief, and she didn't know where to go. So Magnus and Katerina Loss took her in. So she's rooming with Katerina Loss, and this is also the time during the war. So she and Katerina work really hard nursing people in the war. So I think one big thing in this story that I really liked was how they briefly mentioned how Tessa struggles with immortality. Because after watching Will die, she's known all along she's going to outlive everyone she knows. But I don't think it's really something that really hits you until you see your significant other die. And you see your children. The next it's going to be your children. It really hits you how long your life is going to, how many times you're going to have to go through this grief. So, while they are taking care of the Mundanes, they run into Jem, and Jem has been hurt. Some sort of warlock magic or whatever So he winds up in the hospital where Tessa and Katerina are working and healing Mundanes. So I'm asking myself, how did he get hurt, right? And it kind of had to have something to do with his search for the lost Herondale. And this kind of merges with Katerina's story about a love and taking a boy to America. Really complex storyline, but it's very interesting as well. So this guy that Katerina was worried about is named Roland. They have lost, so she took him to America and they had since lost touch. But he's been alive and he has been on the run from something. And then Jem and Tessa get to have a moment and it's all very sad and very tragic and Jem leaves. And it made me really sad too. And on to story number 5, The Wicked Ones. This follows Stefan and Celine. I believe these are Jace's parents, if I'm right. Stefan, so as we know, Stefan was married to Amatis, who's the sister of Lucian, who is a werewolf. Now, Celine is not a nice girl. She has this hate towards Amatis. Yeah, she really doesn't like Amatis. She has some poor things to say about her, like she's not even pretty. But it's because she's so jealous that Amatis is with Stefan, and she's like in love and obsessed with Stefan. So as we learn in the first trilogy, Valentine had come in between Stefan and Amatis. Number 5 and number 6 stories actually kind of converge, and they're all about this Celine. And I thought it was a really interesting time. This is the one that's in 2006. So this is the time of the Circle, and this is before Celine. This is kind of showing how Celine ended up with Stefan, and how Stefan was with Amatis and moved on to Celine. I find this one fascinating. I really loved this story, even though, like, I hate Celine. Oh, I hate her so much. Like, she basically makes a deal with Valentine. Like, she knows, okay, yeah, this is all in story number 5. Okay, so Celine goes over to Valentine's apartment and goes in without his knowledge. Then he comes in with something, and they're having, like, a private conversation. She's like, oh, shit, you know? Valentine's gonna catch me. And then Valentine knew she was there, so he's like, after he kills this person, he's like, alright, come on out, Celine. So he doesn't even act mad, and Celine's kind of like, okay, you know, why isn't he mad? I guess it's all kind of part of his game, part of his manipulation is making people feel close to him and catering to their needs. And she really needs to belong, and she needs to feel like I guess she's always like messing stuff up, but she's really like pliable. She's not really a strong character, and Valentine completely preys on this. But he built her up to make her feel like she's a strong individual. What is she talking about? Basically kind of lies to her and tells her like, oh no, you are a strong person and stuff like that. So she feels like he's the only person that sees her this way. So it really feels good. So she puts all this trust in. And then, so he wants her help to do something, to basically lie and put innocent people away. And she knows that this is so wrong. But he says, and I can give you Stefan on a silver platter. So now she's like, I feel like there's more cons than there are pros to working with Valentine, because she would be putting innocent people away, knowing that they're innocent, for this greater purpose that I don't even think she cares that much about. It's all Valentine's doing, but it gives her a purpose, and the only thing she wants is Stefan. But this, I think, is right after she also overhears Stefan talking about her, and he has no interest in her at all. In fact, they're kind of laughing at her expense. So she knows that however she got him, he doesn't want to be with her, and yet she still takes the deal. I'm gonna have to read more. I hope that we get to talk about this a little bit more but I'm gonna wrap this up for now, and when I finish up with the last 5 stories, I'll come back. Okay, I have finally finished this book. I loved this book, okay? Let's go ahead and wrap up the second part of this book, starting with story number 6, Son of Dawn. So Son of Dawn. So Brother Zachariah gets a lead on the Lost Herondad. Celine actually overhears a man and a woman talking, and this guy takes something to transform, to look like somebody else. The woman has to fight off a Shax demon, which Celine helps her. And this woman asks for an Arazzi, and Celine is taken aback. She's like, then you can't unless you're a Shadowhunter. And she's like, trust me, give me an Arazzi. So this is where we realize that the woman is the real Herondel, not her boyfriend or her husband. Her husband has been playing that he is to take the heat, to protect his girl. But it was just so sweet. This girl, I guess, also says not to trust Valentine. Well, we all know he's not trustworthy, but this is the first Celine is hearing of it, because we learned that Celine really trusts Valentine. So when Brother Zachariah meets this girl, he sees something familiar. This is all just foreshadowing because, like, obviously, but that's all he needed basically to figure out what was going on. Brother Zachariah offers to take her away and help hide her, and she declines. So he feels kind of like he can't do anything, he's powerless. She also declines any sort of help whatsoever. But he pulls out the, like, heron necklace or whatever. I guess she recognized it or something. And he explains it, and, you know, this is getting really heavy, so I'm gonna put it down. We know what we're talking about. So he explains to her, like, okay, please just take this with you then. You'll never see me again, but if you run into some help, into some trouble, you can summon me by using this necklace. So she's like, okay, fine. Oh, I did actually talk about this one a little bit in the previous clip, because this is also the story when Celine confides to Valentine. Valentine offers Stefan to her on a silver platter. All she has to do is lie and condemn people. But this is also where you kind of I don't know, like, it's not right what she does. I think it's ridiculous. I don't know if I feel sorry for her. I don't know. I don't really feel sorry for her. But you can kind of see where she's coming from, because she walks by this room or something and hears Stefan and the others say something about her, so she lingers. They basically say that she's a child. She realizes that Stefan will never love her. But I guess I find it really crazy because, like, it's kind of like asking that question, like, what would you do if the person you love the most could never love you? Like, would you want them to love you knowing that that's not how they really feel? Like, would you still, like, fight for them? Because, like, I think most of us could agree that, like, we wouldn't want to be with somebody unless they truly liked us. But despite all that, she still agrees. She doesn't know how Valentine's going to do it, but Valentine said that he could get Stefan to at least be with her. He didn't say he could get her to love him, get him to love her. But she gets really upset and really emotional, understandably, and she goes to Valentine and says, okay, I want him. So she stands by silently as two innocent people go down because Valentine says so. Damn! That is some shit. The seventh story, The Land I Lost. Now we are more modern times, New York 2000. Okay, so I think this is what was going on. So Jem was dealing with some yin fen being smuggled in or something like that, and finds this little Shadowhunter kid, an orphan. So he brings him to the Institute, and this is when he first meets Alec and Izzy. And they decide to, for him to live there. Jonathan Whalen mentioned something about how his dad used to joke around about how there was another Jonathan, which at the time, they don't know what that means. But now, of course, now we know. There was another Jonathan. What? So then we jump to New York 2012, and there's a whole story about Lily and vampires. And this story, at the time, the story really stuck out to me. I really liked it. And now I can't recall what happened, but the eighth story is called Through Blood, Through Fire. This is again about Roland and Arlene and how they had a child. So Roland is the human who was covering up for Arlene. Arlene is the Shadowhunter who was in hiding. She gets pregnant. This was such a good story because they also go into how she had been on the run. I mean, she's been on the run her whole life, but things changed when she realized she's going to be a parent, and the same fate is going to be for her kid when they find out that she's pregnant. So she separates from Roland, and they do their best to kind of talk when it's safe, but this is killing her. Actually, what happened is she left her son with Roland, and she left because that way they're after her and they could get her away from her child. So this, destroyed, but she was just trying to protect her kid. I'm just like, oh my god, that's so sad. And there's a character in this story called Raphael, and I kept thinking they were talking about the vampire Raphael, but then we find out it's just a baby, a Shadowhunter baby. Anyways, I was so confused by this. I think it was a really poor choice of character name without really knowing about him. This is modern time, latest time period, and he's just this little orphan Shadowhunter child, and so Alec and Magnus are going to adopt him and take him in. Anyway, Buenos Aires. So Robert wants Alec to be the Inquisitor, and Alec, I guess, is deciding that he would like to just because he wants to see a lot of change. Every move he makes within the Clave is always with the intention of wanting to change the laws and make them more inclusive, and I love that. So Tessa, Rosemary Herondale. Rosemary Herondale summons Jem for help. She's pregnant, she's freaking out, they're after her. So they get Tessa involved. Tessa changes into Rosemary, but it takes her a few tries and is really difficult for her, which she thought was really strange. But Rosemary also is afraid of Shadowhunters generally because of some other stuff that Shadowhunters pulled on her ancestors too. This was another really good story I liked learning. Honestly, all the stories in here were really good. A fairy stabs Tessa while she is Rosemary carrying a baby, right? Tessa gets stabbed by a fairy, and she's having trouble changing back into a person. Changing back into Tessa, because if she were Tessa, she would heal or something. Well, oh my god, I'm getting this all mixed up. Okay, so Tessa and Jem follow this lead, and they go looking for Johnny Rook, the Lost Herondale. Oh my god, this gives me chills. So the Lost Herondale, Kit. This is about Kit. So Kit, I feel like I need to go back. Okay, so the last 3 stories are basically about Kit. Rosemary is his mom, and Johnny Rook raised him. That's what we're led to believe, right? So Tessa and Jem go searching for Johnny Rook so they can find this kid. While in the Shadowmarket, I guess Tessa changes into Rosemary. This fairy stabs her, and then she can't change back. She's stuck in this whole limbo. So what they find out is Johnny Rook is actually Kit's real dad. He changed his name to Jack Crow. I could not believe that. I mean, it makes perfect sense because we learned in the previous story that Kit was separated, that Rosemary left Kit with his dad, and then she took off to go into hiding and stuff like that, and she knew that they would chase her. So he decided not to even tell his son who was his real dad, and that's really sad. But oh my god, can you imagine, Kit was thinking that he was adopted this whole time and had no parents, but literally his dad was raising him the whole time. Alright, there's 2 more stories. Story number 10 is called Forever Fallen. This mentions that the cohort even existed back in 1904. So Ty is dealing with his sister, Livy, being tied to him, studying ghost tendencies. Apparently the cohort is stuck in Idris. I do like in this story that Livy, despite her ghostly status, is a real character. I mean, there's not many ghosts in this series, and we learn that Kit can see ghosts. But Livy talks to Ty and tells him what being a ghost is like, which I found pretty interesting. Livy can actually hear through wards, so I thought that was really interesting. So she goes up to the ward to Idris and is listening in on Zara planning an attack. So they find out that one reason why Tessa got stuck in that limbo is because she's pregnant, which alters her physiology, and her changing isn't normal, you know what I mean? So I thought that was really interesting and made total sense. Now the Heron necklace gets moved to Livy. Livy can now touch things, I guess. Also, Livy's emotion broke the glass. That was crazy. And I guess it has something to do with the fact that she is tied to Ty, because he created her. So it makes her different or something. And the ending of the story got really weird because we have in Queen of Air and Darkness, there's a Jace from the other world, a Jace and Clary. So then there was this thing that happened in the story where it was Jace and Clary were dead, and I was what? But then it turns out they were talking about the other Jace and Clary, another world or whatever. I really don't like this part. It was annoying. I never liked that whole aspect of the other story. Anyways, it's part of it. So Tessa and Jem's baby is born, and her name is Mina. That's pretty much all about that one. So the last and final story is called The Closing. I guess that's appropriate. This basically follows Sebastian, Clary, Ash, and Janice. I guess these are all people from Thrall, whatever. Simon runs into Jace, and I guess he's acting really weird, so I guess this is because this is the other Jace. The best part of the story is when Tessa tells a story to Kit about his mom, and like how she changed into him, and this one broke my heart because Kit was just like saying how he's never going to be enough. And obviously he's talking about time. I definitely felt like they were leaving an opening in the last trilogy for a sequel trilogy. But I think that if they do another trilogy, it will be like about Kit and Mina, obviously, when she's growing up. So I would definitely be in on that story. That would be a good story. I really love this story because as it closes, Kit goes to live with Jem and Tessa. I love that Jem doesn't just quell his initial surface level feelings of like not feeling like enough. Like, I feel like most people would just be like, no, of course you are. Like, don't say that about yourself. But Jem never does that. He takes a completely different approach, and he's just so like fatherly towards him, just kind of like accepting of those emotions, just understanding, and then just tells him that he's there for him. And I'm just like, oh. And I guess it's just so touching too, because he really talks to him like he's his true son, not like he's just a warden or someone he's taking care of. Like, he has like a true compassion there, just the way he was talking to him, and it was so touching. But overall, I loved this short story collection. The storytelling was basically, the whole book in itself is Jem's searching for the lost Herondale, spanning many years, spanning like 100 years, right? So he's like following different leads throughout these stories, but his story weaves through all these other stories and throughout time. And with each story, we get to know some characters and a moment in their life, and they all do tie into something. They are important to the story. They add something, but I just loved the storytelling in the way it was like that, and how Jem's affected them, or how their stories affected Jem's mission to find Kit. We wrap it up with that, with Jem finding Kit, and it's just so great. But I think more so too is the writing style in here was much different as well. Like, it was well organized. Yeah, I don't know. It was so good. It was so beautifully written. I think it's one of my favorites of all the books I've read so far. And that wraps us up. So there's only 2 more books but there is going to be Chain of Gold next, and then Chain of Iron, which just came out this month, just a few days ago. So I almost caught up. Then that will bring this project to a close until they come out with more books. It's exciting seeing the end. The end is near. And then I do have some other videos planned for after that, for some tier rankings, and I just have some other like fun themed videos to go along with all of this. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time for Chain of Gold.